Welcome back to another lesson for beginners in the astrology classroom. In our last lesson, we analyzed the birth chart of a client whose career had unexpectedly slowed down. Deals were falling through, income was affected, and naturally he wanted to know why. By following our step-by-step framework, we discovered that his current Mahadasha was activating significant transformations in his career and emotional security. If you haven't watched that lesson yet, you'll find the link in the description below. Let's bring back the natal chart again. The client is currently running the Moon Mahadasha, and from our previous analysis, we know this is a 10-year period where the Moon is the dominant influence. Hearing 10 years is enough to make most people panic, but don't. Remember this important principle. Planetary periods are like seasons. If the weather forecast tells you that winter is coming, you have two choices. The first is to do nothing. You refuse to accept that the season is changing. You don't prepare your winter clothes, you don't switch on the heater, and you walk out into the snow wearing a t-shirt because, after all, yesterday was warm. What happens? You shiver, you struggle, and you suffer, not because winter is bad, but because you weren't prepared for it. The second choice is to prepare yourself. You bring out your winter coat, wear the right shoes, plan your travel, and adjust your daily routine. The winter is still cold, the snow still falls, but your experience is completely different because you understood the season and adapted to it. Planetary time cycles work in exactly the same way. Astrology doesn't change the season, it prepares you for it. When you know a challenging dasha is approaching, you don't panic. You adjust your expectations, make wiser decisions, strengthen the areas of life that need attention, and avoid unnecessary risks. The challenges may still come, but you're far better equipped to navigate them. So the real question isn't simply, when will this be over? What the client should ask is, where am I within this transformative season, and when will the conditions begin to change? That's exactly what we're going to learn in this lesson. Let's bring the chart back. At the time of this analysis, the client is running Saturn Antardasha. From our earlier analysis, we know that Saturn directly activates the 10th house of career. The message of Saturn is clear: slow down. Reevaluate your career direction. Work with greater discipline. Manage your expectations. Right now, the weather on the career front is stormy amidst the winter of the Moon Mahadasha. Progress is slower, opportunities require more effort, and success doesn't come as easily as before. But remember what we discovered in the previous lesson. Although the current weather is stormy, the Ascendant Lord is strong. He has the capacity to make positive changes to his career direction or manage his expectations till this period is over. Now comes the important question: will the storm clear or prolong longer? To answer that, we look ahead to the next Antardasha of Mercury. But before we analyze Mercury Antardasha, let me teach you a simple technique to understand how a planet and its time cycle interacts with a particular subject matter in a chart. In this case, the subject is career, so we begin from the 10th house. Now, count from the 10th house to where Saturn, who is both the house lord and the Antardasha lord, is placed. You'll find that Saturn is 4 houses away. In other words, Saturn is placed 4th from the career house. What does this tell us? The 4th house represents comfort, stability, security, and familiar surroundings. Using this method of analysis, we are looking at the relationship of Saturn from the career house. So when Saturn is 4th from the 10th house, it tells us that the career itself is moving into its own place of comfort and security. This fits with what we have already discovered. Rather than pushing for rapid growth or taking unnecessary risks, the Saturn Antardasha encourages the native to slow down, consolidate what has already been achieved, and reevaluate his career priorities. It is a period of strengthening the foundations rather than expanding them. The career is not being asked to grow aggressively. It is being asked to become more stable. This is why the native experiences delays and slower progress. Saturn is reminding him that before building the next floor of the house, he must first make sure the foundation is strong. The wisest approach during this period is to remain patient, honor existing commitments, strengthen professional skills, manage finances carefully, and avoid making impulsive career decisions simply because progress feels slow. When the foundation is secure, the next phase of growth becomes much easier. Because Saturn itself is debilitated, this period can be challenging, thus the storm amidst the winter. Now, in the same way, count from the 10th house to the house where Mercury, the next Antardasha lord, is placed. You'll find that Mercury is 8 houses away from the 10th house. In other words, Mercury is 8 from the career house. At first glance, this may sound like bad news because the 8th house represents transformation, uncertainty, upheavals, and major changes. This tells us that even in the Mercury Antardasha, the client's career is still undergoing transformation. The old way of working is unlikely to continue unchanged. But remember, the house position tells us the type of experience, while the strength of the planet tells us how well that experience is managed. You must remember that an 8th house relationship does not automatically mean suffering. It simply tells us that change is taking place. Whether that change becomes a crisis or an opportunity depends on the strength of Mercury. So our next step is to assess Mercury itself. If Mercury is weak, the native may struggle with these career changes during its Antardasha. If Mercury is strong, the same transformations can become opportunities to learn, adapt, reinvent himself, and ultimately build a stronger career. Let's find out which story this chart is telling. Now let's assess the strength of Mercury. As always, we begin with a base strength of 50%. Mercury is placed in Leo, a friendly sign, so we increase its strength. It is also placed in the 5th house, a trine house, which further supports Mercury's abilities. Referring to your planet strength guide, we increase Mercury's strength to 80%. Next, we assess Mercury's depositor. Mercury is in Leo, so its depositor is the Sun. The Sun is exceptionally strong, being placed in its own sign, Leo. A strong dispositor provides a solid foundation for the planet it hosts, allowing it to function with greater confidence and effectiveness. Because of this strong support, we increase Mercury's strength to 90%. There are no significant afflictions weakening Mercury, so its final strength remains at 90%. This tells us that Mercury is a very strong planet in this chart. Mercury is a planet that signifies intelligence, logic, reasoning, analysis, curiosity, learning, memory, and adaptability. A very strong Mercury means a very clever Mercury as well. Now let's put everything together. The Mercury Antardasha will still be a period of career transformation for this native because Mercury is 8th from the 10th house. The career is still evolving, restructuring, and moving away from its old form. However, this time there is a significant shift from the Saturn Antardasha. Saturn brought delays, pressure, and uncertainty due to its weaker strength. It slowed the native down and forced him to reevaluate his career direction. Mercury, on the other hand, is an exceptionally strong manager. Instead of simply enduring the transformation, the native now has the ability to actively transform it. Mercury gives him the intelligence to identify new opportunities, the adaptability to embrace change, the communication skills to build new relationships, and the initiative to create solutions instead of dwelling on problems. The transformation hasn't ended, it has simply entered a new phase. Think of it this way. During the Saturn Antardasha, the old career structure was being taken apart. During the Mercury Antardasha, the native begins building something new from the lessons he has learned. This is why we don't interpret the 8th house as purely negative. The eighth house destroys what is no longer serving us, but it also creates the opportunity for renewal. It is the strength of the house and planet that determines if the challenges will be a positive or negative experience. So, will the client's career challenges disappear after Saturn Antardasha? Probably not. But the chart strongly suggests that this is the period where the native regains control of the situation. Instead of feeling like events are happening to him, Mercury empowers him to become an active participant in shaping his career for the future. That is the promise of a strong Mercury. It doesn't stop the transformation. It helps the native navigate it wisely and emerge stronger on the other side. Notice that we have not analyzed Mercury's houses in detail, nor have we examined its conjunctions with the Sun and Ketu. At this stage, that isn't necessary. Remember, the client's question is not, tell me everything about Mercury Antardasha. The client's question is, when will my career improve? So our focus should remain on the relationship between the career house and the upcoming Antardasha Lord, Mercury. We've already established two important facts. First, Mercury is 8th from the 10th house, indicating that the career will continue to undergo transformation. Second, Mercury is an exceptionally strong and clever planet, showing that the native will navigate these changes successfully. Those two pieces of information are sufficient to answer the client's question. As you become a more advanced astrologer, you'll learn to refine your interpretation by analyzing conjunctions, aspects, and other supporting factors to specifically predict the process. But as a beginner, don't fall into the trap of analyzing everything in the chart. This will overwhelm you. Focus only on the information that answers the client's question. That's how you keep your analysis clear, structured, and relevant. Now it's your turn to practice. Using the same framework you've learned, analyze the next two Antardashas of Ketu and Sun. Ask yourself these questions. Will these Antardashas continue the career transformations, or will they finally stabilize the career? Will they reinforce the current direction or lead the client down an entirely new path? By the end of the Moon Mahadasha, do you think this client will emerge stronger, wiser, and happier than when he entered it? I'd love to see your analysis. Leave your findings in the comments below and explain how you arrived at your conclusion. I'll be reading your comments, so have a go and let's discuss your interpretation together. If you are using this method of analysis to your own chart, do comment below also what you have understood about your current career. Thank you for staying with me through today's lesson. Do subscribe for more lessons on applied Vedic astrology for beginners. If you would like to learn and apply Vedic astrology at a beginner level, do check out my Applied Vedic Astrology for Beginners course in the descriptions below. My lessons are in preloaded video format, just like the explainer video you just watched. The concepts are made easy with step-by-step framework to help you apply what you learn immediately. See you in the next lesson.